Any business person will tell you that to be successful, it takes a lot of creativity. Reacting to market changes, personnel issues, problems with distribution. Every day, finding solutions is a creative challenge. If you talk to any creative person, they will tell you that to be successful, it takes a lot of business. Market changes, personnel issues, problems with distribution. Every day, finding solutions is a business challenge. So we went to talk with Cristian Mungiu. In 2007, the Romanian director won the coveted Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival for his movie 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. And last week, his new movie, the humorous Tales from the Golden Age, opened. We spoke with him earlier this week. Cristian, thanks very much for being here. I appreciate your time. I'm curious as to how much time we see the creativity. How much time do you, on a relative basis, get to spend creating versus going through business matters?
Well, actually, I believe that finally I spend much more time, I don't know, promoting what I do and organizing things that I spend for writing and directing. Because for, I don't know how, but this is what is the specific of a Romanian production house. There are no Romanian production houses where you can go as a writer-director and just, I don't know, give the screenplay and somebody else will handle things from there. We ended up, all of us Romanian directors from this new wave of filmmakers, by having our own production companies. So basically we have to do everything, like from, I don't know, writing to directing, but also organizing the shooting, looking for money, which can be very tiring. And finally I do something else on top of making the film. I handle the sales to my sales agent, and I handle distribution in Romania. And all in all, I believe this makes me, I don't know, spend 250 days a year here in the office working like, you know, somebody hired, and spending very little time in writing.
And your new movie, Tales from the Golden Age, in that movie, in the beginning, you did list some corporate or organizations that contributed. How successful in Romania is it, or how easy is it, I should say, to find investors, to find the funds to promote your movie?
It depends what you understand by investors. It's basically impossible to find private investors, to involve private money in filmmaking, because this is such a small business that it's impossible to promise to somebody that you are going to pay the money back. The only way of being able to live out of filmmaking is to be lucky enough and smart enough to sell the film abroad. I'm having, I don't know, in 2 weeks of screening this film in France, more viewers that I'm going to have in Romania, or rather more funds that I'm going to get from Romania. So Romania is just your home country where you want to be proud that you've screened the film for people, but it's not really important in terms of business.
Well, but given your success in your recent films and the international notoriety and acclaim it's received, I would think finding investors would not be as difficult now as it had been.
It's honest to say that it wasn't too difficult for me even before, because these 2 films or 3 films that I created in the last years, 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days, and the films from the series Tales from the Golden Age, were funded with Romanian funds and were funded before my Palme d'Or. So I haven't yet used the kind of little fame that I got to check if the financing for the next project is going to be easier. Very likely it's going to be easier, because I talked already to lots of people that know how to access funds. But for example, even if I do access funds for a co-production, I would go for public funds and not specifically for, I don't know, private money, because private money come with the necessity of respecting what the owner of that money wants.
And you mentioned before the CNC, which is National Center for Cinematography, translated would be. How successful are they in promoting Romanian directors and productions?
You know, it's a relatively well consolidated process of allowing funds for Romanian productions. They are an organization which is not necessarily developing a lot. They've been created in 1997. So right now I believe they know better how to give funds for production than to promote.
Is it enough? What they do, what the government does, enough to promote the Romanian film industry?
There's no industry. First of all, there's no industry of film in Romania, you know. just a habit. You can't speak of an industry when you have less than 40 screens in Romania and basically no profit. When you have less than 10 films produced a year, so it's not enough, if you ask me, and it's not enough considering the fair amount of good news that film has brought for Romania in the last years. It's not a matter of how much money the local authorities would make from films which are being shot here. Maybe that's not a very big business. But Romania was very visible abroad in the last years because of film. So I believe that somebody should notice this in the government and see that an investment in film is an investment which is very efficient in Romania's image abroad. Much more efficient than just buying some advertising on Euronews or Eurosport. Because we're not promoting the country because we have to. We do something which is visible. And therefore I have way bigger hopes from the Romanian government than what they do now.
There have been foreign producers, foreign films coming here from the U.S. Cold Mountain was shot here. It was very obviously famous. What brought them here?
Well, I believe that especially the prices that were during that period. But things have changed. Ukraine and Bulgaria, and not only them, even Hungary again and the Czech Republic have dropped the prices again. So, and Romania was not very active in terms of legislation. Apparently, all the countries in the East, and especially Hungary and the Czech Republic, managed to adapt their legislation to the loss of the investment, which was 5 years ago, and now they reattracted people by giving incentives for people. And it's enough, for example, to ease the way in which people get back the VAT. And if you can compensate, I don't know, a little bit of what they spend here with something that's on top. But it didn't happen like this in Bucharest. It didn't happen like this in Romania. What happened is that the mayorship a few years ago had the funny idea that that's a big business for the municipality because they are seeing American actors on Maghiero every day. So now it's more expensive to shoot in front of Casa Poporului than to shoot in New York.
Romania has, I'm learning it more and more as I live here, Romania has a long tradition of creativity, arts, music, poetry. What will it take to reestablish Romania and rejuvenate, I suppose, its past in those creative and intellectual arts?
Well, I suppose it's not the same situation in all fields. Whenever, for the arts that don't involve so much funding, things were moving a little bit in the last 10-15 years. There are some foundations, there are some private galleries, there are some people investing. But for cinema, for example, because it's so expensive to make a film, or to build a theater, or to re-teach people to watch films, this is going to be a little bit more complicated.
A couple social questions. I'm curious because your movies provide really an astute observation of the past. You were 21 when the revolution occurred, so you were coming of age. The country, in a sense, came of age as well. Do you worry about people forgetting the past?
Not really. I think that younger generations should just be let to forget. It's not like this. I mean, when I was a child, my parents would tell me all the time, you don't realize how happy you are. We've been to a war and things were very difficult and there was a huge famine. You can't really pass your difficult experience to somebody else like this. I believe it's really important for a while to just let people be, because them living in Bucharest today is still very difficult. So they have to cope with reality as it is right now. Of course they need to know, but not like in a systematic way. And this is why I created these films also. I believe that the film is much more nice way of getting back and revisiting the past, because it's not at all didactic and you can laugh watching this film and you can watch the stories. Maybe at some point when you're old enough you will understand something, maybe your parents will tell you something, but I don't think that we should start in school by teaching people what we've been through.
Do you think there's a certain facet of society that concentrates, it seems to almost dwell on the past? Do you think that retards, withholds progress forward?
I believe that the present situation in Romania is such that we need to focus on keeping these people home and trying to get better situations for them before they decide to leave, than tell them that this is never going to change, or we've been through these complicated times. Because the main problem that we're having right now is that people that could change this country in a more rapid way, they just leave.